Hello, Professor Noble and biochemistry class. My name is Angela Smith. I am presenting Unit 4 Case Connections. I elected to present case number 1 and 2. I will start with case number 1. We were given a scenario of a newborn girl appearing normal at birth. Within 24 hours, she developed lethargy, hypothermia, and apnea spells. The attending physician suspected a metabolic disorder and ordered a panel of labs. We were asked which diagnostic would be the best to distinguish between a urea cycle disorder and a disorder in beta oxidation, and to discuss the rationale for this choice. I selected choice D, which I will get more specific about in a few moments. However, I would like to argue against choices A, B, and C, all for the same reason that they're not specific enough. But I will go into that a bit further. So choice A, blood glucose, can be affected by many conditions and is very nonspecific to urea cycle and beta oxidation issues. Particularly in a newborn, they are very susceptible to temperature changes, sepsis, and there are many conditions that can result in hypoglycemia. Although typically with true urea cycle disorders, you're going to see a normal blood glucose and electrolyte levels. Fumarate is a byproduct of the urea cycle and is important for gluconeogenesis, so that can affect blood sugar levels in a urea cycle disorder. However, there are many conditions, as stated, that can affect that. Beta oxidation of fatty acids is used to support glucose homeostasis, so that most certainly can and typically does affect blood glucose levels, resulting in hypoglycemia. So choice B, urinary acids, can be seen with urea cycle disorders. However, again, in the presence of urinary acids is not specific to really either disorder. Choice C, serum fatty acids are typically within normal limits for urea cycle dysregulation and may be elevated, and typically are elevated with beta oxidation issues. However, again, there are many processes that can result in the presence of elevated serum fatty acids, so non-specificity. So I'm going to go back up to my choice that I selected, the presence of plasma glutamine. Plasma glutamine would not be seen in beta oxidation disorders, but typically are seen with urea cycle disorders. Virtually all cases of urea cycle disorders, and there are many subtypes, will have hyperammonemia, and the non-toxic nitrogen carrier glutamine would be elevated pretty much across the board to absorb the high levels of ammonia. So that's why I selected choice D. We were then given the lab values for this newborn and asked the question, in this patient where the orotic acid levels are elevated, list one urea cycle enzyme that is most likely deficient and one urea cycle enzyme that is least likely to be impaired, and to justify our answers. So, urine orotate levels were elevated, and the urea cycle enzyme that is most likely to be deficient is OTC, or ornithine transcarbamylase. Ornithine transcarbamylase is responsible for catalyzing the reaction from carbamyl phosphate to citrulline. Carbamyl phosphate is involved in the production of orotic acid, so you would most likely discover deficiency in OTC with elevated urine orotate levels. And the enzyme that is not likely to be impaired in this scenario would be argininosuccinate. Argininosuccinate is responsible for the conversion of argininosuccinate to arginine, and this reaction is upstream of the ornithine transcarbamylase. So a defect in the enzyme argininosuccinate would likely shut down the urea cycle, resulting in low or absent levels of orotic acid. So then in Unit 4 case scenario, case number 2, we were presented with a 4-day-old infant being followed in the clinic. Results from newborn screening demonstrated phenylalanine level of 6.6 milligrams per deciliter, and a presumptive diagnosis of PKU was made. Additional samples were obtained for further analysis, and the parents denied any history of PKU. We were asked the question, as a consequence of this presentation, which amino acid would become essential, may become essential, and that would be tyrosine. So in the case of the infant with PKU, tyrosine would become conditionally essential amino acid. PKU is a condition in which phenylalanine conversion to tyrosine is impaired to various degrees depending on the subtype. BH4 is needed as a cofactor for the conversion of phenylalanine to tyrosine. Phenylalanine and tyrosine are aromatic amino acids that are considered both ketogenic and glucogenic. Then the treatment for this neonate was dietary restriction therapy with good response of plasma phenylalanine levels that dropped to within normal range. And we were asked the question, what are the potential causes for the presentation of PKU? And in my response to that question, I said that the potential cause of the presentation of PKU could be PAH deficiency. Phenylalanine hydroxylase catalyzes the hydroxylation of phenylalanine to produce tyrosine, although a deficiency in the cofactor BH4 could also result in the presentation of PKU. So it could be actually either one of those causes, in my opinion, or in my research. Another infant, patient B, is also being evaluated for suspected PKU, and they did a BH4 load test on both patients, and it sounds like the it was a very controlled test, which is good. And we were asked to summarize the results of the test for both patient A and patient B. The summary table shows that patient A did not respond to the BH4 load in a desired manner. The phenylalanine levels persisted to be high, and this could mean that the PKU diagnosis was incorrect, although not necessarily. The patient had no family history, and PKU is an autosomal recessive inheritable condition, but that's not necessarily completely exclusive either. Or the diagnosis could be correct and the patient had a variant of PKU that, for whatever reason, and many variables in my research that I found can affect the load test. There could be many reasons for the patient being unresponsive to the administration of BH4. Patient B may not have PKU either, but I am venturing a guess that the patient does indeed have PKU. He or she, I don't believe the second infant we knew the gender of, but he or she could also have a deficiency in the cofactor BH4 itself. So, but I am going to go with the infant A, still within the realm of possibility having PKU, but for whatever reason not responding to the BH4 load, and patient B, I'm gonna say most likely does indeed have PKU. Thank you, and I've really enjoyed this course.